What's up guys, Jaden Irwin here with Little Sticks. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. I know this is the first long form video since the new year, so happy new year. I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about my predictions for 2023 and my recommendations on tools that you should be learning in 2023. Hopefully it's helpful to some of you kind of newer devs trying to maybe figure out what should I learn, what's kind of the new thing. And then maybe also for devs that have been doing this for a long time, you're just trying to figure out, okay, so what's going to be popular in 2023? What will be worth my time, putting some time into learning something new? So really, I think one of the best places to start is the 2022 State of JS survey. So this is a survey that goes out every year. It's kind of been floating around the internet and some videos. People have been covering what is in there. So I won't spend too much time on breaking down charts and all of that because I'm not an analytics person myself, but I'll just kind of share my observations of what I'm seeing and what other people are seeing. The first one is that React and Vue are very popular. They have been for a long time, but we are seeing a very slight decline in React and Vue and seeing an increase in maybe some competitors and some other options other than React and Vue. So this is on the web dev frameworks side. So library frameworks, UI libraries, and things like that. So we have Solid right up here, very new. We have Svelte, which is also very new. So right at the top, and then we've got Quick also up top too. That's a very, very new one. That's actually probably the most recent of these. And then React and Vue are slowly declining, and Alpine.js also slowly declining, but Alpine.js is kind of one of those micro frameworks. Preact is on the decline as well. That's probably very similar to the trend that we're seeing on React. Lit actually dropped in usage, which I was surprised about. I've been seeing more people talk about Lit than ever, but it could be a lot of factors for that. People might be finding other solutions for web components, or they might be trying things like Solid and Svelte instead. So yeah, on the framework side, we're seeing React and Vue slowly decline, and then Solid, Svelte. What else do we have in here that's new? Quick. Those are kind of picking up speed. And then if we go over to the meta framework side, which meta frameworks would be a framework like Astro, that's built on top of other frameworks or built on top of other technology. So Astro would be one of the first ones that come to mind because you can kind of put any framework inside of an Astro project. So Astro, you've been seeing some content from me about Astro. You know that I'm a fan. It is on the increase, which is great. So anyone trying to learn Astro or thinking about learning Astro, it is definitely a technology that is growing in usage and in interest. So I would check it out. There is rumors of 2.0 coming out very soon too. So it might be a really good time to start looking at Astro. SvelteKit just released 1.0. Slight decline, but that could be, it's only 3%, so it's not too big of a difference. SvelteKit released 1.0, so we should actually be seeing more people try SvelteKit here soon. Next.js is still a great option for anyone that is trying to learn about frameworks and what they should use of one of these meta frameworks to build a website or build a web app. Next.js is still very popular, so you can't really go wrong by learning Next and learning React inside of Next. So there are some other options here though. 11D, I was actually surprised that 11D decreased as much as it did. I wonder if a lot of that has to do with Astro. People are kind of switching their gears over to Astro instead of 11D for their static sites. Remix is right here in kind of the middle of the pack too. And my old friend, I haven't made a Gatsby project in a long time, and that probably is an indicator of what we're seeing on this chart here. Gatsby is on a very quick decline down to almost nothing. I hope this Valhalla thing, I haven't really looked at it much, but I hope Gatsby is working on something really cool, but it just seems like people are switching to Next instead of Gatsby, or people that are new are learning Next instead of Gatsby. They're not really picking up Gatsby at all. So It is unfortunate to see, but that's kind of how it works with frameworks on websites. People switch to new things pretty quickly for websites. Web apps, that's kind of a different story. Obviously, you're a little bit more locked into your framework that you chose for your web app, but websites and static sites, it's pretty easy for people to switch to something new. So it looks like Gatsby is on the decline. If we go down a little bit on these meta frameworks, though, I did want to talk about kind of these wild cards, these other tools that they put in here. So Solid Start, lots of users, lots of people trying out Solid Start. It's very new. Solid Start is, if you don't know, it is a meta framework around Solid, from Solid. So think of it like Astro in the sense that you have this, or Next, if you have this framework built around one of those UI frameworks. SvelteKit, very similar. It's actually probably the most similar to SvelteKit, where the people who are making the UI framework are also making the meta framework, or the more packaged batteries included option. So Solid Start, I definitely would keep my eyes on it going into this new year. And then another one is Fresh. I haven't talked much about Fresh on the channel, but expect to see some Fresh content from me in 2023. I really do think that Dino, and I'm going to go into this here pretty soon, but I think Dino's onto something really special this coming into this new year. So the framework from the Dino team being popular is a good sign, and it's actually really fun to work with too. So yeah, Fresh is on the horizon. So the next piece I wanted to talk about is the backend, and really kind of the name of the game right now is Dino. If you haven't learned about Dino, don't really know much about it, I did just finish up a crash course series on Dino. So I would check it out if you haven't yet. It is from the creators of Node, or the creator of Node, Ryan Dahl. So there's definitely some backing to it. There's some interest in it already just from that. And it's actually really, really fun. It's one of the coolest technologies I've used in a while in terms of like ease of use and speed. It's just like very simple. The approach that they take is so simple. You don't feel like you're fiddling with node modules and NPM installs and all of that. They do have NPM compatibility now too. So right there on their website, they've got NPM compatibility. So it's worth checking out. I do think 2023 is going to be a big year for Dino. They actually added this NPM compatibility just at the end of last year. So there's a lot to come on the Dino side. Node is obviously going to be as popular as ever going into this next year, but I do think that Dino and Bun are going to shake things up. I didn't pull up the tab for Bun, but if we just go to bun.sh, you can check out Bun as well. Bun is newer. Dino is past 1.0. Bun is not really close to 1.0 quite yet. So they are working on some cool things, having NPM compatibility as well, working on speed. This has kind of been a controversial chart in the JavaScript runtime communities, that this may or may not be very selective about how they're getting these numbers, but Bun is very fast, and what they're working on is really cool. So worth checking out. Just as much as Dino, but Dino is, a few steps past where Bun is at right now. So that's really it on the back end of JavaScript runtimes, because, Node is by far the most popular option. Let's go to the next piece of the backend though, which would be backend as a service solutions. So this would be something like Firebase, right? So Firebase has been around for a long time, very popular. A lot of people have built apps on Firebase. You are seeing more competition in that space though. So the first one that comes to mind is Supabase. They've been doing a really great job of shipping new features consistently. They have a great design. They have a lot of support right now too, so a lot of attention is around them. And Supabase is definitely a technology that I would be interested in learning in 2023. I've played with it a little bit, but I haven't gone too far in depth with it myself. It's a Postgres database. They've got authentication. They've got really kind of the whole package to build an app and have that all of your backend ready to go. So Supabase is great. Another one that's been coming up is AppWrite. So we just search for AppWrite real quick. AppWrite.io. AppWrite is very similar to Supabase. It's a backend as a service solution. They give you the database. They give you, edge functions. They have storage. They have authentication. They have all of the pieces that you need to build an app. This would be another one to look at if you're looking at backend as a service solutions. And then the last one would be Pocketbase. So Pocketbase.io. It is a newer one in the group of backend as a service solutions. It is a little bit more simplistic and minimalistic in its approach towards the entire solution. And what I mean by that is it is one executable file that your entire backend is running on. There's some trade-offs to that, but one of the cool things about that is it's very portable. You can run that on a server for very, very cheap, and move it wherever you want to, right? From service to service. So very cool solution worth checking out in 2023. So the last piece of this would be content management services on the web dev backend. And my personal favorite, you've seen some content already on my channel about it, is Sanity. If you go to this G2 crowd, I'll leave a link in the description below, actually to most of all of these sites that I'm going to, so you can check it out. But this G2 crowd survey that they've been taking, and kind of just metrics about what people are scoring and setting as their reviews, G2 crowd is noticing that Sanity is right up at the top. Storyblock is also up here too. So this is the trending version. There is a live version of the grid as well, and that's a little bit less weighted towards movement. That's kind of why I like this trending ones. You can see the trends going into next year, but Sanity is right up there at the top in terms of satisfaction and momentum. Storyblock as well. So Sanity, Storyblock, those are going to be two really great solutions to be looking at for content management services. Headless CMS, those types of things. So expect to see Sanity soon on my channel. I'm going to be doing a Sanity and Astro crash course. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you haven't already. It is coming very soon. Astro 2.0, like I've said earlier, is coming, so I might try to time it so Astro 2.0 and the Sanity crash course are releasing around the same time. And Sanity actually released a V3 just recently too. So you might be noticing that a lot of these tools are really pushing into their next phase and kind of maturing, heading into 2023. That's kind of a trend. And then another one that I wanted to mention here is Payload. So Payload CMS, just payloadcms.com, is a newer comer to the Headless CMS, very new actually, but they're onto something really cool. So think of it like an open source Sanity, in the sense that their approach to a CMS is very similar to Sanity. It's like a UI on top of a document-based database, and their UI is very clean, very easy to use. And like I said, it is open source. So you can actually see the way everything's working. You can host it yourself very easily without any issues about self-hosting. I actually found it to be very simple to set up. You have to set up a MongoDB database, and then you just host it on your own node server. So there's not a lot of complexity to self-hosting it. Versus self-hosting like Supabase or AppWrite, it's going to be a little bit more involved. So yeah, Payload CMS. Keep an eye on them in 2023. And then let's move to the next section. That's going to be AI. So AI, it's kind of the buzzword right now. I feel like everyone's talking about AI all the time. But I don't have to pull up the tab, but ChatGPT has been floating around a lot. People have been talking about it. Is it going to disrupt everything? I'm not really going to go into all those details, but I do think OpenAI has kind of popularized this idea that I can use AI as an API. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that heading into this next year, where it's just as simple as using a weather API, right? Like I create an account on your API service and set up a token, and then I just hit the endpoints and request AI generated content. And that's going to become very popular going into this next year, I believe. I don't think ChatGPT and DALL-E are going to be the only options. Not that they are right now, but the only really good options. I know there's Stable Diffusion. There's a few other image models that are out there. So yeah, I think 2023 is going to be a big year for AI APIs specifically. So check it out. ChatGPT has a great API. Actually, I don't even know if they have a true API necessarily yet, but OpenAI has a text AI API. There's a lot of acronyms there, but yeah, OpenAI is working on some really cool APIs for artificial intelligence. Last piece is going to be native apps. So I won't go too in-depth on native apps, but I do want to cover all of development, not just web development with this channel. And this is actually one of my first videos that I posted. I think the first coding tutorial that I posted was a Flutter tutorial. And Flutter was pretty new at the time, back when I think my first video was in 2019. It's probably not even uploaded anymore. But yeah, so Flutter is as popular as ever. People are using it for all kinds of things, as they should be, because that's really what it's built for, is mobile apps, web apps, embedded apps on like a Linux device or a Internet of Things type device. All those kinds of different use cases for native, I think Flutter is going to be a very strong option for. And it's obviously a very strong option for Android and iOS too. If you're a startup and you're trying to build a brand new app from scratch and you don't have a lot of resources, React Native is also very popular, but I am seeing more people talk about Flutter than React Native personally, in a positive sense. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, I switched my React Native app to Flutter. And I think you're going to see more of that heading into the next year. They are working on or about to announce something at Flutter Forward, which is, as of recording this, a couple weeks from now. So keep your eyes on Flutter in 2023. I think I would like to do more content around Flutter. But yeah, it's a pretty cool framework. It's one of my favorite frameworks that I've ever used, just because of the simplicity, right? Like I can create any UI that I want very, very quickly and run it on pretty much anything. So yeah, check out Flutter. It is very popular. There's a huge community of people that are supporting it and pushing it. So yeah. Another piece there that I wanted to mention is that foldable phones. So and this is actually true for web development and native apps, but foldable phones are becoming pretty popular. I've actually noticed quite a few people pulling out foldable phones in their pockets in public, whether it's a flip device or, like the widescreen tablet device. I do think 2023 is going to be a big year for foldables, kind of that shift where it's a super niche thing to maybe a little bit more of a popular option for people buying phones. I think the prices might come down a little bit heading in this next year. So keep an eye on foldables, both for, web development. You want to keep in mind that tablets, and these are small tablets, right? These aren't the big iPad type tablets. That's a screen that you really want to look for, and make sure that your UI fits that size of screen really well. It's not just a very simple shrunken down version of your desktop app, but feels more natural to that size. And I think that goes hand in hand with Flutter as well. As far as I know, Flutter already supports foldable devices, so that's a great fit if you're trying to target that. So that's really all I had for each category. We kind of went through front-end web development, back-end web development, JavaScript runtimes, CMSs, all of that. But really, I just want to kind of conclude with the tools that I would recommend learning in 2023. Think of this like the too long didn't read of the video. So the first one that I would recommend is Astro. It definitely seems like it's taking over in that front-end web development space as one of the main alternatives to Next.js. And I think a lot of that has to do with it feeling similar to Next.js in terms of syntax and the fact that you can bring over React components straight into it. And, just the support for other libraries and frameworks inside of it. It is very popular, and I think we're going to see more growth even in 2023. Dino, I kind of mentioned that when I was talking about Dino, but Dino is something that's going to be really big, and I would recommend looking into it, playing around with it, make a little API, shameless plug, but go through my crash course, make a little tiny API with it. It's pretty fun to use. And then the next one would be Fresh, kind of along with Dino. Fresh is their own front-end framework. I can pull up their site too, fresh.dino.dev. So check it out. It is a newer framework. There's not as much documentation around it, which is kind of why I'm thinking I might do a crash course on it. Fresh is their first-party framework from Dino. And then Flutter, talked a little bit about Flutter. I think it's already very popular, so you're just going to see it become even more so in 2023. But if you haven't looked at it yet and you're thinking about mobile app development, native app development, Flutter is going to be one of the best options out there. Svelte, very popular, as we've seen, right? And Solid, those are kind of the two big new UI libraries that people are looking at. The way I see it, and this might not be the most popular opinion, but the way I see it is if you're coming from Vue and you're very familiar with Vue, then Svelte would be a great option for you because the syntax feels similar. And then if you're coming from React and you're very used to the React paradigm, then I think Solid would actually be a better choice because it feels and behaves very similarly in terms of syntax and naming and all of that to React. And then the last little thing I wanted to tack on there, and this is kind of just like me selfishly saying don't ignore this segment, but web components are very popular. I don't know why so many people are opposed to web components. Maybe it's just because there's not as much marketing around it. I think that's the main reason. But they are very popular. If you look at the numbers of usage of web components on websites, it's very high. Like large corporations and enterprises are writing a lot of web components and using them. So I would recommend looking at lit, lit.dev. May or may not do a crash course on lit this year. But one of the easiest ways to kind of get started with web components and not have to mess with a lot of the things that you have to do with a direct vanilla web component, which that's actually, if you're doing something small, a vanilla web component works great. But something like lit would make it easier to write and interop with multiple web components between each other. So I would recommend looking into it. Some people are like, no, I've heard too many negative things from my favorite influencers, but I do think web components are very popular. I mean, there's a reason why giant corporations are naturally writing a lot of web components themselves and using them, mostly because they don't want to keep having to rewrite the same little pieces of their app over and over. So they use web components for those pieces. But that's really it. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Jump in the comments below. I'm sure there's some controversial opinions in here somewhere. But I'm happy to answer any questions about what you want to learn in 2023. Let me know if I missed something. I feel like I covered a lot. But if I missed something, let me know. I'm definitely interested in new technology, obviously. That's kind of why I lean towards learning new things and teaching new things towards that segment of development. So I appreciate you guys watching, and leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in this next year. Peace.